the Unholy DKs from drawing too much threat. But we're ready to go. Game number 1 getting started right now between MethodEU and Depleto Gang. Moves, Tettles, let's take it away, guys.
Oh, look at this.
All right.
Starting off with a giant pull from MethodEU. They are pulling this entire section. They have the Colossus. They have, I think, 3 Augurs, two Confessors, which it does not matter because they Unholy DK everything and destroy it in 10 seconds.
Yeah. So this is one of the these are the 2 of the typical strategies for this dungeon. So what you see from Method EU is that they are actually skipping that first obelisk where Depleto Gang is electing to play Void Weaver Malthier, just constantly kicking, trying to move it all the way up into the area. This basically determines that Method EU is going to be playing 4 obelisks with Yasma later on in the fight, whereas Depleto Gang is going to be playing that slightly more safe strategy of only 3 obelisks with the final boss.
Yeah. So Method, obviously, they are on Alliance and they are all Night Elves. They just ran through the trash, Shadow Melded, and went straight into the boss, pulled this entire area with the boss. There is a lot of stuff going on, a lot of CC required, or interrupts and coordination required. You have the augurs and stuff going out. You also have the ad that they CC'd over there off to the stairs. This can be a little confusing because you have the double priestesses that are also doing these blood pools in addition to priestess alone. That's also doing these blood pools, so it's a little confusing which one you actually soak, because if you take the priestess pools,
you can soak any of them. So basically you can actually soak any of the priestess pools. It doesn't really matter as long as the priest's transfusion itself doesn't go off. If the priest's transfusion ends up going off, then it will like eat a bunch of your pools. If it doesn't, then you're actually okay to be able to pull the add priests with Priestess Alinza.
right?
But looks like MethodEU is going to be downing Priestess Alinza here in just a couple seconds. Then is going to be moving on to another incredibly large snap inside of Atal'Dazar.
Yes.
All
Yeah.
right,
So hopefully no fire deaths.
I think they're okay. So what I've seen like a large amount of time is that a group will end up like fearing this pack right here and just leaving it for a couple seconds, and then we'll like leap to a snap spot, tricksing most of the majority of the trash here at this part of. Okay, so they also ended up. Is that the middle pack?
They pulled the middle pack too. Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff going on. They have two fear boys they have to do. They have the Dinomancer plus all the middle stuff. By snapping it up here, the Dinomancer, I think it's Monzumi, does a charge, and by it being up here, you no longer have the charge. And so it effectively negates a lot of the damage that this middle pack has. So they actually just walk off and it follows them down below. Looks like they're gonna Razan is
they're
in
a little late on the
pad.
Razan snap. Yeah, okay. So how they were doing this in practice is that they had Razan like immediately beneath them, and they were able to grab him while the mobs were still at like 20% health, and then just deal with it like that. But with that patrol, they may end up having to line. Okay, so I think they may end up lining on this middle pillar here just to make sure that they don't end up getting feared. And then, of course, with a full Night Elf comp, you can do the interesting interaction of only one person has to Shadow Meld. It doesn't, like, only one person in your group has to Shadow Meld. It doesn't have to be the person that has the fixate on them. So they're going to rotate through Shadow Melds just to make sure that the boss is stationary. They're also utilizing these reanimated raptors with stuff like Festermite, Revolving Blades, keep your wits about you in order to be able to amplify single target damage onto Razan, because like those reanimated raptors only do just an incidental amount of tank damage, especially on a 17 tyrannical. Protection Warrior is going to have no problems being able to tank the bleed plus a couple of those reanimated raptors.
Right. So yeah, looking at Depleto Gang, they're actually also on Razan. They are not that far behind, despite doing the pillar at the beginning. They are behind a little bit, as Razan is very close to going down. For MethodEU, it looks like their Depleto Gang is pulling Razan over to the stairs. I believe they're going to try and get some of the screamers pulled down into the boss here.
Which is interesting because I don't know. I wonder like how much they actually need that trash count. Like I'm sure it is like free trash, but with the strategy that MethodEU is doing, they ended up snapping the middle pack. I wonder if Depleto Gang ended up snapping the middle pack, or I wonder if they're just a little bit behind in terms of trash count. I didn't exactly see because they were on that smaller screen there.
So they did get the screamers, like I said. So I mean, it's just free count. It doesn't really, like, you're just sort of cleaving them down as long as you keep the interrupts and explosives orbs done.
Sure.
That doesn't really matter. But switching back over to Method EU, we are going to shroud past all of these screamers and swords. I'm pretty sure they are still pulling all of that stuff. They're just, I think there's a rogue staying behind, and they're just doing one massive snap with everything. Oh, they're not even snapping it.
Oh,
They're just
interesting. They're not
okay.
snapping this. I wonder why. So they actually killed all the toxic swords inside of a leg sweep. So I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't really need to snap it if it's killed inside of a leg sweep. It just makes it a little bit quicker in terms of time save there. Uh, but unfortunately, they don't have a bunch of stops for those shield bearers of Zul, which do cast that bulwark of Juju, making you do like 90% reduced damage. You actually did see Fragments there ended up using that Marekth's Fang after he ended up gaining that Furious Gaze buff, which is allowing him to do a nice subtle 300k DPS.
Yeah,
And
definitely,
then
definitely
Gang
balanced.
has downed Razan, and now they are making their way towards the middle part of the instance. Both of these teams are fairly close to one another. I think MethodEU is a solid like 30 to 45 seconds ahead,
Yeah.
which in a dungeon like Atal'Dazar, which in time trials we saw it be done in like somewhere in the 11-minute range. 30 seconds is a significant amount.
Yeah. Oh no, we see a death come out from Depleto Gang. The enhancement shaman has fallen, unfortunately. They did do a giant snap though, and I think they. Oh no, it is.
We blame
Looks like a
Moose
full
for
wipe.
those.
Everything reset. Unfortunate.
Yeah, we blame Moose for those.
Well, that definitely puts them a lot further behind than MethodEU, as MethodEU has already pulled Vocal, and they are past the totems, and they are just doing the actual
So that's
boss.
that's one of the things that we didn't really talk about. It's really hard for the rogue to be able to tricks. Okay, so Outlaw Rogue is by far like the best class at killing explosives, but if they're tricksing the tank and knocking some of the mobs up into the snap spot, like near the tank, then it's going to be very complicated for the rogue to also be able to kill the explosives. So either like I think that's probably part of the reason that MethodEU elected to not snap that second pull is because it just didn't make sense in terms of explosives.
Yeah,
And
well,
if the rogue
not
ended up
only
having the
that,
tricks, it could be complicated.
well, not only that, typically if the rogue's tricksing from far away, the rogue won't be at the snap spot to kill those explosive orbs for a good 5 to 10 seconds. And that causes your demon hunter to have to focus the orbs, obviously decreasing your overall damage. And it's just a lot of coordination. That initial snap has to.
I think the tank may have fallen.
I think
off
so.
the snap
I
spot.
think so as well. Unluck. Yeah,
Right.
we see the Earth Ellie go down to steal
Earth
threat
Ellie!
from everyone. The Earth Ellie Shaman utility.
Beat them down.
The Earth Alley's tanking. Who needs a tank? Just bring a shaman.
Fear?
Oh, the fear goes off.
The utility.
Trimmer!
Look
Shaman
at the
utility!
moves.
What is this?
Look at the
Man.
moves. Man. They have it all. Honestly, if this isn't a reason that you should bring an enhancement shaman to your group, then I don't know what is.
So they do.
All the tools.
They do have a couple people die, but they do not full team. So looking at MethodEU is actually doing the tank spire. So they are not doing quadruple. This is interesting. They're not doing quadruple obelisk.
I know why this is. It's because Now is weak and he can't take skewer with the Urgroth Breaker of Heroes. The Spirit Breaker plus the skewer combo, just not in his wheelhouse. Even the MDI.
So you're saying Now is a paper tank.
Yeah, sometimes they're a paper tank. It's just happens.
No, honestly, so in time trials, we saw them do all 4 obelisks, which was fine in terms of time trials, because if you messed up in time trials, it was very easy to restart, do it again, right? And you had unlimited time, so it didn't really matter. In a tournament like this, obviously, it is very risky doing all 4, and if you wipe, it is essentially you're giving the other team a solid minute, right, on your timer. And so they probably know they're ahead at this point, and they just did the timer, or they did the tank obelisk just to ensure that it was a lot more safe for them.
Well, I mean, time trials was also a dungeon level lower, right? Time trials were in 16s, whereas this is currently a 17. So here we go. You see the new awakened mobs. You got Voidweaver Malthier, Blood of the Corruptor, and Samrak the Beckoner, of course, doing various things. Voidweaver Malthier being that notable kick mob, the Spider Woman, Samrak the Beckoner putting those fear circles on people. You saw Azalea end up revivaling off all of that, the first fears, just to make sure that all of the damage could be coming through from all the guys.
Yeah, so they
Blood of the Corruptor, which is not really a mob that
The
does a
Blobba,
lot.
yeah, leaving
Yeah.
all this stuff, and if you're looking at who they focus Samrak, the fear guy, which on Yasma is very scary. If you get feared, you can get feared into a spider and instantly die. So it makes sense why they focused him. They still have the interrupts going out. They are about to kill Voidweaver and just have Yasma remaining. And it looks like this is that was a very clean pull. I don't think
Yeah.
anyone really missed an interrupt or anything. It was very clean.
Yeah, Depleto gang still on Volcall. Ooh, now Twilight Depth just hit the mobs. But okay, anyways,
Oh.
Depleto gang still on Volcall. Just those wipes that happened whenever they ended up doing the snaps because of all those explosives going off ended up costing them the run.
Yeah.
MethodEU has looked incredibly clean with their run here. Yeah, I think explosive plus raging on Atal'Dazar is incredibly rough, and sometimes you just get you can just get RNG to just automatically lose. I guess it just works like
Yeah,
that with explosive.
especially with these
Yeah,
big pulls. I mean, the RNG of explosive is very I mean, it's RNG, right? Like you can get a ton of explosive orbs or you can get one for the entire pull. And so it's very the rogue is skipping all this trash, pulling to the side and vanishing.
so
I
this is
believe they
the
don't have shroud
downside
right
of the
now.
enhance. No. This is the downside
Yes.
of the enhance. Is no shadow meld.
Oh, true.
All right, but
So
Method
Method
EU does
EU,
take down
yes.
Yasma and ends up completing the dungeon in less time than a dampening PvP arena match.
Well, you'd certainly know a thing or two about that, Gladiator Tettles. And when you have so many different mobs coming around and so many overlaps, it makes it much more difficult to be able to see what's underneath your feet. So we've seen a lot of tanks try to do that and take advantage of it. And we're ready to go, guys, with game number 2 between Method EU and Depleto Gang Gang, starting up in King's Rest.
All right, so
Yeah,
first thing we got shrouds, lightfoot potions coming through, all running all the way into the room here, where the golden serpent will be. You see the demon hunter fell rushing ahead, making sure that they're able to hit that gong as quickly as possible. What you're going to be seeing here is both of the teams pulling the whole entire room, which is by far the most dangerous pull in this dungeon. Making sure that they're able to execute it is going to be incredibly challenging. They also are alliance too, so not having access to that blood elf ratio can be fairly problematic for some teams.
Yeah, so Depleto is actually pulling out ahead. They are getting their pull started before Method EU, and you know what? I saw a Windrush totem go out, so I think that's the Shaman utility giving them that speed boost. But looks like they are obliterating this trash. The
Sanguine.
unholy DK, yeah, the Sanguine is sort of healing all the mobs. Everyone is
Oh,
getting super low with Grievous.
yeah, you actually do see those witch doctors ending up
Oh,
standing inside of that.
and we
Oh,
see a death. We
there's
see
those
double deaths.
vortex. Oh
Unfortunate.
no.
Uh,
All right. Well, on
from
the other
Method
side,
EU.
Method E kiting out the Sanguine perfectly. You see it in that very long line there. Whereas Depleto Gang just had a couple of issues with probably getting kicks, mobs getting stuck inside of Sanguine, and then Shadow Bolt volleys, chain casting, and it's
Yeah.
just like once that happens, that's just a death. You saw now run out there, grabbing some of those reanimated guardians, pulling those into the Golden Serpent. That's been a very dangerous strategy that we've been seeing historically in the MDI. I think it's going to be a little bit safer this season because one of the changes that they made to these reanimated guardians is they are now soothable, and Mira's on that hunter does have access to that. It's not tranquility shot; it's like a pet ability, right, Moose?
It's your pet, yeah. So your pet has an ability that essentially purges and soothes mobs, and it's different per pet. But yeah, it's Hunter utility coming out, and look at that.
Yeah,
He does soothe one of them right there. Or actually, wait, he's not even soothing.
they're both
Mirrors,
enraged.
Mirrors, what are you doing? Mirrors, soothe. Use your utility. Oh,
uh,
there you go. He soothes one. But yeah, no, this is actually very good, especially for hunter damage with rapid reload. You can get your cooldowns back up, having this 3 target. And yeah, it looks like they're just going through this boss pretty quickly. They did use Bloodlust on that first pull. And so actually, I'm sorry, Time Warp. What
Nether
is
wins.
Nether Winds?
I believe the ability is called Nether Winds Moose. Yeah, you see the Golden Serpent go down. That is by far the most dangerous pull in the dungeon. Like that first pull with the whole entire room. Just being able to kite out the Sanguine as clean as we did see from the side of Method U is really good by them. Utilization of line of sight to make sure that all the mobs are constantly moving is also something that's really important there. And just making sure that the mobs aren't I don't think any of those mobs can really get slowed, but like get Ursul's Vortex or get knocked or get rooted in a spot that's really bad for them can be fairly problematic. You do see now that they have one of these trash packs getting pulled inside of this gauntlet room. You saw Frag still running that Marethus Fang, spitting on all of the mobs, putting all of that venom on them.
Yeah, so if people are not familiar with how Tournament Realm works, the order of these mobs, of these mini bosses, are all preset, and they will be the same every time. So there is no RNG in which mobs spawn like there is on live. They are known. So looking at MethodEU, the Shadow of Zul. So someone actually went and pulled the other two constructs, and obviously they had to pull those Shadow of Zul. They are Alliance, and so they were not able to Arcane Torrent them like you can on Horde on live. So you saw Mirrors use his Binding Shot. They just DPS them down real quick. And yeah, so pulling the second group of mini bosses here with those constructs is sort of a dangerous pull, but a lot of, so the Chain Lightning goes out. They don't actually have any knock for it. They're just going to heal through it. And heal through the guard captain, his axe barrage and all that stuff. It is fortified, so it does a little bit of damage, but it's only a 17, so they just heal through it and kill all the constructs.
Yeah, but they did end up getting those two constructs, which can be dangerous with the pull if that frontal does get synced up. Like we've seen, like historically, there have been problems where like those constructs will come through the doorway at the exact same moment that they end up casting that frontal. And if you do end up getting hit by that frontal, it could be fairly problematic. Looks like Depleto Gang was very close to sanguining the Golden Serpent there with the construct that did die right next to it. And the boss might get healed there. I'm not 100% sure.
I think it did get healed a little, yeah. I think the construct died right under it, and while it was channeling, it got healed a bit.
Yeah, channeling the gust. That's really bad. You do see the rogue there walking out whenever he does end up getting that that blood on him. What is it called? Spit gold. He ended up getting the spit gold on him, ran out of melee to be able to drop that. Whereas on the side of MethodEU here, they're just chugging away at this gauntlet room. There's no real way to, unfortunately, speed up the gauntlet. You just kind of have to wait for the mobs to spawn. It looks like they're on the king, the queen and her raptor. So they're on the queen and her raptor, which if the raptor is actually what kills people the most, I feel like out of this pack. The queen can kill your tank, but with the changes to block coming to Protection Warrior and 8.2 to where they're able to actually block range attacks.
Oh, they're doing the fear obelisk now.
Yeah, that's many problems. Interesting. So we do see Samrak the Beckoner being pulled. The most dangerous part of Samrak is probably these ravenous flesh fiends, and they do put a pretty sizable dot on your tank. So making sure that you end up DPSing those down first is of utmost priority.
Yeah,
Would you
so
agree,
I agree. So the dot that they put on is actually, they put it on the closest target. And so if melee are standing inside of them, or like if the hunter pet is standing inside of them, the hunter pet or the melee can actually soak those ravenous fiend dots to alleviate some of the tank damage. But yes, the tank takes a lot of initial damage with all of those dots, and obviously the fear, if the fear is not dispelled properly. They are skipping this construct here, so they are not pulling that in, which makes sense because just pulling one mob is sort of a waste of time in time trials. Swapping over to Now's point of view, they are pulling, it looks like they're pulling the entire room here.
All right, please, bro. One Twilight Dev.
One Twilight Dev. He just had one, so it was a little early.
He needs another.
Oh.
In addition to that, how they end up killing these embalming fluids can save or cost them a lot of time because they're doing it with both constructs. If they end up like sanguining and instantly healing all of these constructs with full health. Oh, the Twilight Dev! Look at the dam! Oh, he's beating.
He pulls the boss. Pulling everything into the boss once he gets aggro. Oh, it didn't even go towards. He missed it. He missed it. Oh, they're all getting healed.
All right, now's on suicide.
Oh, he missed it again.
Another one.
What is he doing? He's throwing his Twilight Devs. He's missing all of his Twilight Devs now.
I'm gonna have to have a conversation with him later. That's not how you do it.
That's not how you Twilight Dev properly.
I think I know a coach that can help him out.
Oh,
yeah, they do a good job with the Sanguine. Their Sanguine management there was actually really clean. And of course, with Machemba, for those who don't know, if you actually end up cooking the sarcophaguses quick enough, like right as a person gets put inside of them, then you can actually bug Machemba out to where he no longer does any abilities. I think MethodEU is a bit slow on that one. Probably doesn't matter too much. No,
I feel like
no, they weren't doing the strategy, so it doesn't matter too much on a fortified 17, they may not even get 2 entombs, which in that case it doesn't really do anything. But if they were to get multiple entombs, then it would have probably been worth them to take the time to set up to be able to click the sarcophagus as quickly as
Yeah,
possible.
I think the timing, the way it worked out, they still had blobs and stuff up when that first entomb went out, so I don't think it was smart of them to try it. Obviously, they did not try it, but so this hallway coming up that MethodEU is approaching, the Spectral Berserkers, Hex Priest, all this stuff, these are all very dangerous mobs on Fortified, and so they obviously are not pulling super big. You have the Witch Doctors with the Frost Shock, and then you have the Berserkers with the Severing Axe that goes on the tank, and you can see now already has 2 stacks. He's taking a pretty decent amount of damage, and you have the Healing Tide Totem going out, which heals mobs within a 10-yard vicinity. But it looks like they are chaining to the Beastmaster, and these raptors, which similar to the raptors we saw earlier, can hurt melee depending on where they jump.
Yeah. Now getting a sub there. Big shout out to that. Big shout out to the sub for now.
Oh no, the
In addition to
Beastmaster's
that,
insane win.
okay, so you actually did see now leap away from the Beastmaster, and then they ended up using the Hunter Pet or potentially Blade Dance to be able to soak that that bleed from that Berserker. It's just really good strategy from them. You actually do see Mirez resummoning his pet. I think his pet probably ended up dying to the bleed, but it saves now a lot of damage. It's
they
just
did
really
that.
good.
Yeah, they did that not only for the bleed, but the Beastmaster was standing in Sanguine, so now actually outranged the Beastmaster to pull him outside of that Sanguine so that he would stop getting healed. So they are. It looks like they are skipping the Brute here. They're just sort of walking around it. I'm assuming Jinji distracted it, and they are shrouding past it. They are not doing any of the obelisks. They're just shrouding past this entire bridge with Skystep. Yeah, it looks like they're just going straight towards the third boss here.
Yeah, King's Rest definitely has some of the more interesting obelisk placement. They have 2 obelisks within I don't know 15 yards of one another, right? So you do have the opportunity to put one of the obelisks or like at the gate where you end up walking into the Shadow of Zul bridge, and one like the option to put the other one in the room where you fight Council of Tribes.
Right.
But you do see MethodEU, especially on a 17, with as much practice as they have had, just electing to skip it. You do see Depleto Gang here.
They are doing the bug for Machimba, yeah. So that is how you do it, and it looks like they did get it. I'm pretty sure.
I would assume so, just because of how quickly they ended up doing it. They did get a mummy, which for those who don't know, the mummy does a cast, but if it's kicked, then it's not very dangerous. If it does go off, it puts a disease on all of the players in your group, and you will probably instantly wipe. If I had to make a wager to guess, because
you can
the
heal
dot is
through it.
incredibly overtuned.
You can heal through it on a 17, but it is very, especially higher keys, it's essentially a wipe if you let that go off.
We don't call those a bad thing. We call those wit stacks.
Yes, exactly.
But
cleave damage,
yeah,
holy damage. Look at that.
If people are watching at home and are looking for strategies that they can implement into their own keys and they run with a consistent group, this is a really good one that can save you time on Machimba. Just assigning who is going to which sarcophagus, and then as soon as that person is getting entombed, you just like start spamming 1 on your keyboard to be able to like instantly shake your sarcophagus, and then if you click it instantly, you get that person out of there, and then the boss will no longer do abilities. You just end up marking. So 3 DPS will go to the far side. One of them is going to be like a flex. They will be swinging between the 2 sarcophaguses in case that person is getting entombed. Then the healer and the tank will be on the near side. Just making sure that you do that is a way that you can increase your speed inside of King's Rest if you're looking to do something similar to that online. That is one strategy that I would recommend using.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that strategy does a lot of tank damage, and so the tank, especially on Tyrannical, has to be prepared to live that. So it looks like they are just Depleto's just running ahead. Oh, they're pulling all of this. This is a very giant pull. We saw MethodEU sort of stagger this and chain pull this. This is a very giant pull for the healing totem coming out, and everything's getting healed right now because they are not killing that. So they do kill that. It's actually a very impressive pull doing all this at once. You have 2 berserkers, 3 witch doctors, beastmaster, raptors. That's a lot of damage. So they successfully do that.
I do think that's the power of the Vengeance Demon Hunter right there coming through.
Yes.
Just the ability to be able to face tank all of that without any problems is just where that Vengeance Demon Hunter does end up shining with the Metamorphosis increased HP plus Demon Spikes there. There's
Well,
no
not
way that
only the tankiness of the Vengeance, but you also have the utility. You have the grip, you have the silence, you have the fear sigil, just to lock down all of those mobs and casters right there. So something like that
Hold
is
on.
actually very good. Oh,
Pause. Can you say that word for me again?
what?
Oh,
Lockdown,
fear
berserkers,
what? No,
utility,
no.
fear, sigil.
Okay, you said sigil. You said the word sigil.
Listen, listen here.
Please, bro, drop the fear sigil. I need
Man,
it.
man, calling me out. I actually suck at pronouncing stuff. My guild made fun of me because I called it Behemoth instead of Behemoth. Yeah.
As they should.
Anyways, getting back to the dungeon, MethodEU is actually already down this boss, and they are moving on to the mob that everyone loves on live, known as Shadow of Zul. He is way undertuned, and I think that Blizzard should buff him. Tanks everywhere have an easy time with this, especially warriors.
But what do you mean? They buffed him by 94% this patch.
Oh, true. No, so Shadow of Zul, especially on fortified hierarchies, is actually a very hard thing to pull off for warrior tanks, especially. Vengeance actually makes this super easy comparatively, but warrior tanks and I think bear tanks are like super squishy in terms of magic damage taken, and Shadow of Zul does a lot of magic damage. He does melee also. He does do physical damage, but it's mostly the magic damage that most tanks are scared of. And yeah, honestly, just living that in a lot of high fortified keys is what makes or breaks your key.
Yeah, Jack is typing in chat the tattoos, Demon Hunter tattoos in all caps, of course. Demon Hunter has a significantly easier chance at being able to deal with Shadow of Zul because not only about their tattoos, but with that metamorphosis, they have well over 1 million health. Additionally, playing that gluttony build, they're way easier at dealing with Shadow of Zul. But MethodEU has pulled Atal'Dazar. I believe they are playing it with 3 obelisks. They killed Samrak earlier, but I think that they have Blood of the Corruptor, Void Weaver Malthier, and the Tank Buster, Urgroth, Breaker of Heroes. So this could be a bit spicy, but just as long as Now is able to live, this pull should be pretty free. They're doing a really good job of making sure they're kiting out the Blood of the Corruptor pulls just to make sure that nobody is going to be taking damage from those. In addition to that, getting out of that Dark Fury from Urgroth, Breaker of Heroes. All of that, just making sure that you're not getting Corruption slowed at the same time. MethodEU is executable flawlessly.
Yeah, there's actually a ton of damage going on. I don't know if you were looking at the health bars, but they were fluctuating a lot while those obelisks were up. But obviously, they have down that without anyone dying, and so now it is just the rest of the boss. It is on fortified, so it won't take super long. We do have both raptors come out, and we still have the first raptor, which just does his leap, and the second raptor does a fear. And unfortunately, we do not have that enhancement shaman utility with Tremor Totem on this on MethodEU, so they will have to do the fear like normal.
Big shout out to Giffoln for the 4-month resub to Fragments. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Big shout out to Giffoln. But yeah, Atal'Dazar dropping sub 5 million health. Overall, this was a flawless run shown off by MethodEU. Is there anything that you wish that they did a little bit differently, Moose? Or do you think that this is basically as clean as a run as they're going to have for a dungeon?
I think for a live dungeon like this, I think they could have pulled off the 4 obelisk, but obviously the